What's up, guys? ThyrixSyx back here. Back from college. I'm on winter break right now, and I decided I was gonna do some more videos because I have free time. So today I'm gonna bring you another deck tech. I like doing those because decks are cool. I like building decks. It's what I do. Not really. Anyway, this deck is a deck I wanted to bring you guys a little while ago, but I couldn't find the time between studying and hanging out with friends. This is a blue-white TurboFog deck from the Modern Pauper format. I don't think many people play Modern Pauper, but we do it when we marry. So I just wanted to make a deck, and I was like, hey, this TurboFog has always been a deck style that I wanted to do. It started out as green-white, and it wasn't as turbo as I wanted it. So I added blue, so it was Bant. And that didn't really work out. So I just dropped green since I didn't need those fogs. So I ended up with blue-white TurboFog. So a little background on the Modern Pauper format. It's the modern card pool, except every card but non-basic lands have to be commons. This means you don't get a bunch of the crazy stuff, but you get to play with cards that you maybe usually wouldn't, or cards that are commons and so you play in Modern, like Pyroclasm. That's great. So the ban list that we use is the Pauper ban list. The reason we do this is because a lot of the common cards on the Modern ban list, especially Ponder and Preordain, are only there because of combo decks that can't exist the same way in a Pauper format. Like, you just don't have the powerful spells to throw out. Additionally, Pauper ban list has, I think, both Grape Shot and Enter the Warren's Band. So like the addition to combo is just not there. So we use the Pauper ban list instead of the Modern ban list. Some of the decks that you see in Modern Pauper, or at least the decks I see at When We Marry, are we have blue-red, either Delver, some form of combo I think still occurs. I think it's like a Kiln Fiend, We Dragonauts type combo where you just like cast a bunch of spells. Like the Storm Count doesn't matter, it's all about just pumping your guys to large proportions and then swinging for a lot of damage. You have various types of Infect. I think you can do mono green's possible, green blue is possible. I think green black is also possible. You have just straight burn. You also have like mono red Sly, where it's like burn and creatures. You can have like green-white aggro, slivers. I think goblins exists, but I might be wrong about that. Don't quote me, I'm probably wrong. Anyway, my friend Internet James, he brought like a weird Cawblade list. I think he might have won. I don't remember. You could do like Zubras. There's a bunch of like weird combo decks that you could also try. One I always wanted to build, but just never got around to it. I called Defendo, where you just use Freed from the Real and I think Axebane Guardian and a bunch of defenders to get just a really dumb amount of. I think it goes infinite. Yeah, you get an infinite mana, and then you use something like Consume Spirit, I believe is the card I used, to drain your opponent for however arbitrary large amount of life you want. Some of the good matchups for blue-white TurboFog control type thing that I found have been basically any deck that attacks. So Infect is a really easy strategy to beat, mostly because they'll be left with a bunch of pumps in their hand that if they use them, I'm just gonna see, does this kill me? No, I'm not gonna use my fog. Oh, it's gonna kill me? I'll take fog. You have to watch out sometimes. There are a couple of proliferate cards that can be played. I think the most common possibility is Steady Progress. But even then, there's only a certain amount of proliferate. So if you know your opponent's just running like 4 proliferate cards in their whole 75, that basically just means don't go past 6. Like you can get 2-6, or excuse me, don't go 2-6. You can get to 5, and then they can proliferate you to 9, and you're still not dead. So you can just use your fogs like that. Any just pure creature decks, so like Slivers, other tribal decks, you just don't care about. It's just like, I'm gonna go ahead and fog, and you can't do anything. You do have to be careful, again, sometimes. Like, the deck is not easy to play, because you have to really, like, time your fogs correctly. There's fogs at different CMCs you have to time correctly. But in the Sliver matchup, like one thing that could happen is they could have a certain board state, but be holding like a ton of lords in their hand. So you have to like kind of weigh the worst case scenario of them just taking their turn and playing X amount of lords and seeing if that might kill you, and then like trying more aggressively to dig for your fogs and like kind of just play the CMC fogs around again. Like determining the play order of your fogs really matters actually. Blue-red Delver is pretty easy because they only have a certain amount of burn they can use, and Delver can only get you so low. So just like don't go past like 10 life. Like depending on how much bolts they've done, obviously things like that. You just have to really pay attention to your opponent's deck list when you play this deck. The blue-red Kiln Fiend deck is a little difficult. Same with blue-red Delver because they can side in to have a lot of counterspells, which just means like they're using one counterspell to invalidate one of your fogs, which just means instead of one fog a turn, like once you get to like the dead zone, it's 2 fogs a turn, and that can be really bad. I actually, one of the tournaments I went to, I went nearly undefeated, except I lost to a blue-red, I think it was Kiln Fiend style deck. I don't think it was Delver, I think it was Kiln Fiend. I lost to that deck because just the number of counterspells he was able to use, it made it so at one point I really needed to draw a fog, and I don't think I did. And it's just because I had to use them even faster. The combo decks are really just, it depends on the combo. If it's get an arbitrarily large army, who cares? You don't. If it's gain an arbitrarily large amount of life, again, I don't care. I'm going to mill you. If it is drain you, then yeah, you probably just lose. I don't think, yeah, like you have to assign counterspells, and that's about it. There's not very many ways to disrupt combos other than that. So, have fun. You can also race, theoretically, but I'll get to that in the actual deck tech. Oh, a deck I forgot to mention when I was listing them off was Mono Black. I freaking hate Grey Merchant so much. Just the fact that you could be at, like, you could be a good 10, 12, like, that's a pretty safe place against most decks when you're playing 20 fogs. They build up their board, and then all of a sudden Gary comes down, and you just die. You just die. And there's nothing, you can't do anything about it. You can sideboard in some counterspells, but then you decrease your fog density, and you now just die to random dudes getting in there because you didn't draw fogs. It's pretty frustrating. I really hate the mono black deck. Luckily, the last tournament we went to had one mono black deck, and they did really poorly. I'm not saying the guy did poorly. I'm just saying like the meta wasn't good for the black deck, which I was happy about because it meant I wouldn't fight. Anyway. I've been to like 3 of the tournaments. They've had more than that. The very first one. So if you want to build this deck, definitely play a lot with it because the intricate. It's really difficult to play because you have to sequence your plays like very correctly, or you just lose. Like it's a very hard control deck to use. But the first time I took the deck, I remember I just made this deck on a whim. I had no idea what I was doing really. I don't play blue strategies very often. I'm very much like a white centered with some black or green. I'm very much like that style of player, kind of a mid-rangey grind fest into like big dudes and planeswalkers type thing. So playing this blue base strategy that was all about complete control was pretty difficult. And I would just end up wasting my fogs when I just didn't need them. I would end up kind of using my draw spells at like the wrong times. So I think I didn't win a single game the first tournament, but it was fun. I had tons of fun with the deck. I learned a lot about how to play it. And the second time, I didn't win, but I didn't completely scrub out. I think I did about 50%, which was a lot better, and still, like, it was me testing the deck, tuning the card choices. Like, at first I had, like, Thoughtscours and stuff, and I found out those were just not good cards. You just really wanted repeatable milling. And then, of course, the very last one that I went to, I think it was the last one. My memory's awful. The player who had blue-red was my only loss, and I felt really bad, because I was going from just straight losing to just getting better. I was so close to just being top. I think I still got like second or third or fourth or something. I don't remember, but I did well. Like the deck, you can definitely do well with it in the red environment. If you're playgroup is just tons of mono black, I would suggest not playing the deck. Like, Gray Merchant just wrecks you like pretty bad. But again, it all depends on your meta. It also depends on how good you are with the deck. Maybe there's a card choice I have overlooked that would be good main deck against Gray Merchant, but I haven't found it. And just sideboarding into counterspells is not the best thing I found, because that was like my sideboard in the first tournament was just a ton of counterspells, and I would never know what to side in or out because the deck is very like linear, like it has a very specific goal in mind. So trying to sideboard out in that case was really hard. Before we actually get to the deck, I do want to say the type of deck I'm doing is one that I've done before. It's where I just like have the images on a screen, and I just like talk about it. The reason I did that is because, one, I forgot the actual physical deck at college. I mean, I'm not going to play it here because no one plays Modern Pauper. They should. It's a fun format. It's really great. But two, I'm not sure if my lighting is very good here. Additionally, like, I'm using my iPod to film, so I don't have like the best setup going on, and I didn't really like my old DeckTechs that were like physical copies, but I can try to work it out if that's what you guys want. So just leave a comment about what type of DeckTech you prefer. If you prefer the digital one with just pictures, or if you really prefer like being shown the actual cards, like being able to see them all together laid out on the table. Because I can understand how people like that. Like when I'm watching DeckTechs online, I usually prefer the physical copies, but I'm fine with like the digital interface type thing. Yeah, so just tell me what type of thing you want. I can work it out. I nothing better to do. Why not? So yeah, after all of that random talking, we'll actually get to the part you care about, the actual deck. I hope you enjoy.
So in the deck, we run 2 Holy Days. They're kind of crap, honestly. They don't get all damage. It's just specifically combat damage. It doesn't like combo with anything. I'm honestly thinking about dropping them for 2 safe passages. The deck seems to be going into a more put out your threats early, your win cons early, and then late game use your fogs. So it seems like having the cheap fogs is just not as important. Then we have 4 Ethereal Haze. I like a lot more, just because it's not specifically combat damage. It still sucks that it's limited to creatures, but it's any damage creatures deal, so even if it's just kind of random pings or weird combo finishes that I honestly can't think of right now. Additionally, it's an arcane spell, which I'll get into later in the deck, but there's a possible like arcane sub-theme you can make with this deck if you really want to. Also, it just looks cooler. The art on Holy Day is kind of lame. Then I run 4 Angel Song. I really like Angel Song because the ability to cycle. If you just have tons of fogs and you really need like an extra land or something, the cycle can get you out of it oftentimes early game when your opponent's not really doing much to threaten your life total, and you don't really need those fogs. Another thing I found useful with the cycle is that having Jace's Erasure out, and like, this has actually won me a game before. My opponent had Lethal on board, but 1 card left in their library, and going on their upkeep, I decided to cycle. I knew they had tons of counterspells in their hands. I was like, I can't cast a fog. I'm just gonna die. So I saw that the interaction. I was like, oh, I can just cycle this. They can't do anything about it. I'll draw a card. I milled the top card of the library. They had none left, and then their draw step, they died. So the cycle does actually come in handy more often than you'd think. Then of course 4 Dawn Charms. In my opinion, best card in the deck. Fuck, 10 out of 10. Would play. Did billion if I could. That's not true. Dawn Charm is pretty awesome because it does just freaking everything. We got the normal fog, of course. Then we can counter the combo finishes or like just any burn. Also, out of the board, you can protect your Delver of Secrets, which, depending on the matchup, actually might come in handy. Like, you might just want to be beat down, and the deck can't exactly do that if your Delver's dead. Then rounding it out, we have 4 Riot Controls, which it's a really weird card. Sometimes it can act as 2 fogs. Oftentimes, like, it doesn't. The life gain matters sometimes, not very often. But I mean, it's still great because it can protect against any damage. So if someone again has like some weird big burn spell, I can't think of anything. Blaze, I don't believe is legal in Modern Pauper. But it's just good for countering like any burn spell. Additionally, like if they just have a ton of creatures, if they're playing like the Sly deck, the mono red Sly, and they have creatures and they're trying to burn you, then the Riot Control can theoretically, in that case, counter multiple burn spells, and it's nice to have. Next, we'll take a look at the ways we actually win the. We do that by milling. So I run 2 Mindsculpts. Initially, this was like 4 Mindsculpts, 4 Tome Scours. Like it was a bunch of single-use mill, and I found it just wasn't as good. But 2 Mindsculpts still really good. You get 14 of their cards immediately, like it's immediate payoff. But then we run 2 Jace's Erasure, which is actually proven to be pretty good for me. Just being able to continuously get them, since I have so many cantrips, it ends up being a very large number of cards that I'm milling with Jace's Erasure, and the aforementioned synergy with Cycle. Curse is also awesome, especially if you can get like multiple of them on the board. Now you only run 6 enchantments, but again, how many decks are going to be running that much enchantment removal that they're going to be able to get all of your win cons? I just don't think it's that much. You want to be able to play turn 2 Jace's Erasure, turn 3 Curse, and then like turn 4 like Jace's Erasure into Mindsculpt, and then from there just fog everything they have. And the way you do this, you gotta get to your cards. So then we'll look at the card draw. Right now I'm running a 2-2 split of Ponder Preordain. Again, these aren't banned because we're using the Pauper ban list, not the Modern ban list. Very important. The reason I'm running a split is because I don't know which one's better in the deck. I've only played 3 tournaments, and as I said, the first one basically didn't exist. They each have their merits. Ponder, you get to look at 3 cards and then possibly shuffle them away. And on Preordain, you get to look at 2 cards instead of 3, but you can actually just put 1 on the bottom if it just sucks. Like you can't do that with Ponder, but with Ponder again you can shuffle. So they have their ups and downs. Next we have Thoughtscour. I really like Thoughtscour because it just makes the deck a 56 card deck. Like being able to Thoughtscour. Additionally, because it's instant speed and cheap, so you can Thoughtscour and very often get a fog and be able to cast it as well. So it can save you out of spots. But also, it's cool, like Jace's Erasure. You play it, you draw a card, and you mill them 3, basically. Then we go to 2 Think Twices. I'm not sure if this card is good or not. I like that you can kind of parse out the mana between 2 turns. It gets a little bit better late game, but I'm not sure how good drawing just like 2 cards for 5 mana is. So again, that comes with more testing. I'd have to like sub out the card, and not enough. We don't play Modern Pauper enough for me to really be able to get those numbers out. So it's a little slow, the deck progression. Then we go to 4 Vision Skiens. I don't care if they draw 2. I'm gonna do it at the end of their turn. They're not gonna be able to use their cards immediately. If I have Jace's Erasure out, that's 4 cards. That like total going from their library. I get 2 cards. Additionally, it's instant speed, cheap to use. I can get a fog off of it. It's fantastic. Moving on, we have 1 4C, which I think I'm actually going to change to Treasure Cruise. I have 1 Treasure Cruise right now. I think I'm going to go to 2 because Treasure Cruise is just stupid. The ability to just draw 3 cards, like even if they're all 3 lands, that's 3 lands that you're not going to be drawing the next 3 turns. Like, sure, with 4C you could like scry all those to the bottom, but you're only drawing 2. Additionally, 4C is always 4 mana. I'm casting cantrips. I'm casting fogs. There's no reason for me not to just play Treasure Cruise. Especially since I'm running Delver on the side, you know, I gotta do it. I can say I'm running Blue-White Delver. Who cares? Moving on to the lands. We only run 18. This is Pauper. Like, everything's cheap. Even though I'm running a 8 CMC spell. I'm running 18 lands. 6 plains, 6 islands, 4 Trainquil Coves. Trainquil Cove and Friends used to be guild gates, but now that they've printed them, it has made the format a lot weirder. Because people just have access to random 4 life gain cards. Like, they're just strictly better than gates. No one's playing gatekeepers or whatever they're called. Gate Creeper Vine, if that's common, I think can be used, especially in Defendo. But you just run 4 Trainquil Coves. And then I want to run 2 Auzorius Chancery, because Auzorius Chancery and the Karoo lands, you want to be able to have them, but I don't think 4 is correct. I definitely think 2 is where you should be. Moving on to the sideboard, I have a little Delver transformational sideboard. It's really fun. So I bring in 4 Delver, and usually when I do that, I also bring in like all of the counter spells. It really depends on the matchup. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know when I bring in Delver, but there's nothing to sideboard. So, but yeah, 4 Delver. It's best against like decks that are really slow. So you're not gonna be using your fogs as early. So you're gonna be able to just play a Delver like on turn 1, and then it's almost always gonna flip. Like honestly, you have the 18 lands and then the 6 enchantment win cons. And of course, you leave them in. Like you want to be able to win both ways, just because you might not see Delver early, and then you don't want to try to win with that late game. It's just not as good. But yeah, so it's almost always going to flip if you have a turn 1. So you just beat them down while they're trying to set up, and then even if they get to the setup or kill your Delver, you just fog them now, like they took too long. Additionally, if you're playing TurboFog, you're going to take out all of the removal, unless like they literally can't, unless everything in their sideboard's crap. So you're going to take out the removal. They're not going to have a way to remove Delver, and if they do, you also bring in 4 Hindering Lights. Hindering Lights are amazing because 1, they cantrip, 2, they can protect Delver, and 3, they can protect you. Then we run 4 Rune Snags. I've not actually been able to play. This is a new addition to my sideboard. I think Rune Snag is probably going to be fun. It scales better than Mana Leak. Like I feel like because of the low number of lands in almost every deck, people aren't going to have that much mana to spend. So sure, they have cheaper threats, but like this, I feel like is better tempo, especially when you have Delver in. So being able to have Rune Snag be better. Of course, it's like anti synergy with Treasure Cruise, but we'll figure it out in testing. But Rune Snag just gets better than Mana Leak late game. So, and then of course 3 Mana Leaks because it counter spells Gary, that guy. Finally, we're going to look at like some cards that I've been considering to possibly put somewhere in the 75. That's one of them's Terashi's Grasp, or however you say it. It destroys an artifact or enchantment, and then you gain life equal to its CMC. The reason I'm thinking about it is because in some matchups, there's actually artifacts or enchantments that matter, like the Callblade or random, like, I don't know, random decks. I honestly can't think of any, but it could come up theoretically. And additionally, it's an arcane spell. Then, of course, we have Dampen Thoughts, which splices onto an arcane spell. And as I said earlier, we do run Ethereal Haze, and if we ran Ethereal Haze as well as Terashi's Grasp, I cannot pronounce that card, then the splice theoretically becomes usable, especially since we also would have Ideas Unbound. Ideas Unbound is a draw spell, I guess? Like, it fuels Treasure Cruise really well. It's an arcane spell, and it, like, late game is just, I'm going to draw 3 cards and then discard any card that's a land, basically. So I want to say that this card could be good. I haven't been able to test with it yet. Again, I've not played in many tournaments, but these are just some interesting arcane spells that I saw that I'm interested in possibly putting in the deck. I'm going to end on this card here. I think you all know my stance on Gary. So on this card, I'll just say I really want to know what you guys think of this deck. If you guys can think of any card that I might have not thought of when I was making it. Tell me what you think about the Modern Pauper format. I really do like the format. All of the tournaments have been super fun. Gray Merchant's annoying, but Mono Black aside, I think the decks in the format are really fun to play with. You get to play with cards that you wouldn't usually get to play with. You get to play with just commons. Additionally, like the deck costs like, I don't know, $10. Like this deck is really cheap, and I even use the F&M. I think they're F&M, that the promo Curse of Bloody Tome, and it's still like it's like a $10 deck. It's fantastic. You can just order some cards online. You can just make changes to the deck for a couple of cents. It's a really great format, I think, for people who want to play a little bit more competitively, but not break bank, and that's really what I love about this format. And it doesn't get enough paper attention. Like Pauper's a format on Magic Online, I know that, but I'm not gonna play with fake cards, guys. Come on. But yeah, just let me know what you think about this style of deck tech if you guys want more of it. If you like the deck, be sure to say so. Definitely try to get your play group into it. I think it's a fun format, and if nothing else, if you guys don't like the format, you wasted what, like $5-10 on decks that you could just like give to your siblings or your friends who are just getting into it. Like, I think it's just a great format to play. So yeah, just check it out if you want. If not, it's your money, your cards. Yeah. So with all that, man, after being on hiatus so long, you'd think I would at least come up with a way to end videos, but yeah, no. Gray Merchant says bye.